to die for if need be.
Honorable Member for Seni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me also add my voice to congratulate my good friend Fifi Kwetey for his nomination. I have just about 2 short questions for you. A few months ago, it was alleged, or better said reported, that the former President J.A. Kufuor made a comment, and I want you to position it in the context I'm going to give you here, that people, to rephrase it, who said they didn't have their money in their pocket at that time, were kind of didn't like job or they were lazy. Now, look at Chapter 6 of our Constitution, and specifically Article 36 2A. Let me tell the 2. And it reads, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I will read to the nominee, that the state shall, in particular, take all necessary steps to establish a sound and healthy economy. And I think you've just spoken about the economy, whose underlying principle shall include, my emphasis on A, the guarantee of a fair and realistic remuneration for production and for productivity in order to encourage continued production and higher productivity. Situating what the scenario I just gave you, how much will you bring on board to ensure that at least this provision highlighted here in our Constitution is adhered to? You give me the nod.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My answer to that would be, it must always be the case that we grow this economy together, and as a result of the growth that we collectively bring about, we will be able to, as it were, share in that growth. It's difficult to share something that is not big enough to suffice everybody. Fairness and equity is critical. What it simply means, as far as I'm concerned, is that if you have a quantum of national income that, let's say, at the moment is, let's say, about, let's just give us an example, let's say about $10 billion. As much as possible, you want to create opportunity that all people who contribute to that national income are fairly remunerated. To bring about greater compensation, however, will require that every single one of us contribute greater towards achieving a greater national income. Now, when the national income starts growing, it becomes simply a question of making sure that all those who are making that contribution are fairly rewarded. As long as contributions are not that massive, it's always going to be an issue of struggle to be able to make sure everyone is catered for. So I would say the real first thing that really must be done is to ensure that all of us are more productive, because the greater productivity we all exhibit, the greater the national income, and then the best we are in a position to compensate all of us adequately. And then we can even cater for people who, for reasons that clearly cannot be blamed onto them, maybe they are not temporarily able to get jobs. The country can find means by which we can, as it were, support until they find jobs. That's if we are able to grow our incomes enough. But until that national income grows, I'm afraid it's going to be not too easy being able to get everybody's compensation being what it is. But equity, I agree, we must ensure that as much as possible, those who are contributing to that national income are fairly rewarded. But I'd say the answer must be growing the national income. That's certainly, there can be no compromise about that.
In this year's budget, my minister spoke about the rolling out of the single spine, or is it spine or spin, salary structure. Do you see it as realistic enough? I mean, that's the catchword here in the Constitution. And if yes, what is it that is in it that makes it so real that people will, or people accept it at the equity that you're talking about?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Now, the issue of equity, in my opinion, is not just important in terms of giving satisfaction to those who are working. It has far-reaching consequences. Because you see, supposing I'm being paid on a monthly basis, let's just give an example, 1 million old cedis, or let's say 100 Ghana cedis. And I feel that somebody at my level of skills, my level of education, is being given within the same public sector, let's say 3 million cedis. That automatically, even let's assume that my 1 million was enough to cater for me and my family, the natural human tendency is for you to feel that you are being cheated. You are not being treated fairly. So that pushes you to want to ask for more. That's why equity is critical. Equity is critical because there must be a system in place to ensure that fair wages are given to people on the basis of what work they contribute, what productivity they exhibit. So I feel the single spine initiative is important because if you are able to go through with it, it reduces the distortions, it creates greater equity, and also in such a way it reduces the pressure, the inflationary pressure that comes from the public wage. Because the public wage is such a massive, it has such a huge contribution to our GDP, roughly about 12%, heading towards 13% if the single spine goes through, possibly 13 to 14%. So that equity must be ensured. With that equity, at least you take some of the pressure off. Because a lot of the strike, a lot of the unrest on the labor front is not coming necessarily because the quantums are bad, but because people feel that there is inequity, they feel that there is distortion, and they don't understand why they should be paid less when they are people that they feel they are working basically the same, they have the same levels of skills with, are being paid more. So it's actually important to be able to address that single spine. And I think we should, as a country, be able to embrace it and deal with it once and for all, and then see how it's going to affect us. As we move forward.
We honourable member for Techiman North. From there, we go to Sisala West.
If you're already in higher gear, higher powered economics, but let's get back to your CV. Fifi, or how do you pronounce it? Is it Fifi?
It's Fifi.
Fifi?
Yeah.
And not the Fanti Fifi?
Actually, it's the same because it's Friday born. If you're Friday born, you are Kofi, or you are Fifi, or you are Fifi. I think the Gans have Fifi. I'm sure most of you have heard about Fifi, he say. Yeah, so Fifi actually is a Friday born as well. But don't worry, I mean, it's the same name. So I normally go by both, yeah.
You're pulling the guns towards the Adans, to Evers, and to Togo.
No, at all.
That is super. I see that you spent 6 years in Togo at the primary level, right?
At the primary level. 6 years schooling. Yeah.
How many years did you spend in Lomé at the second cycle level?
4. Normally, the Francophone stream has O-level for 4 years.
And Bishop Herman?
Then A-level, if I could just... The Francophone system has O-level for 4 years. Then their version of A-level for 3 years. That, makes 7 years. I did the O-level and then came to Bishop Herman.
No, but you were at Bishop Herman from 84 to 87.
Yeah.
It's a GCE O-level.
For GCE O-level.
That's where you had the O-level.
My O-level, yeah.
And spent 1 year doing A-level.
Now, let's say it this way. Because I had done O-level in the Francophone stream, learning virtually everything in French, when I came to Bishop Herman, I was already, let's call it, pretty much advanced. It was quite a debate with the headmaster of Bishop Herman at the time, who felt because I had done just French, I was not exactly comfortable with the English language. I should go all the way to Form 1. And basically it was like, Form 1 is definitely going too far low. So eventually, we were hoping, my parents and I were hoping that they would let me start on Form 3. Then maybe I could pick up with the English and then go into Form 4, Form 5 to do O-level. Eventually, the headmaster was adamant, so we settled for Form 2. So that's why you see for my O-level, you see 4 years. Form 2, 3, 4, and 5 for my O-level.
And at Legon, you spent 3 years doing, is it double honors? Economics and psychology?
I did economics and psychology after 2 years in Achimota.
What was the combination? Is that BA honors?
Yeah, BA honors.
Double honors?
That's BA, economics and psychology.
Combined?
Combined, yes.
That's what I want to hear. In 3 years?
Yes.
3 years. So, with the work experience that you have, would you call yourself an economist or a finance person? A combination of both?
If I prefer to call myself a student of both economics and finance, because my thinking really is that you are constantly on a learning curve, aren't you? No matter what opportunities, no matter what experience you have, the scope for learning is always so massive. So I want to call myself somebody who studied economics, somebody who, as it were, practiced within the financial industry, but somebody who clearly remains a student, avid, desirous of learning more. That's why I'm grateful for the opportunity to basically learn more. And maybe one day will come when, after I've really grasped all the essentials, I could then maybe comfortably call myself a full-fledged economist, maybe.
So you are a student of economics, right?
I'll call myself a student of economics and finance.
A very harmless question. The Bank of England recently has had to reduce the interest rate from 5.5 thereabout to 0.5. Just about last week. And yet nothing is happening to a point where they want to inject as much as 75 billion pounds into the system. What does that picture present to you in terms of how you manage an economy?
Now, let's say it this way. Mr. Chairman. The Bank of England is basically trying to reduce interest rate with the hope that that is going to, as it were, affect aggregate demand in the economy. Because when you reduce interest rate, what you do is to make credit more cheap in order to be able to, as it were, be more accessible both to the business world and for consumer spending. The hope is that somehow the injection of that credit into the system is going to spur the system by way of the massive aggregate demand. And that aggregate demand should be able to, as it were, raise the country's productivity and encourage growth. And if it's not happening, it's simply because the particular global financial crunch we are dealing with at the moment seems to be pretty stubborn, if you ask me, in my opinion. You can see similar difficulties are being faced even in the U.S., where a lot of fiscal stimulus are being used. But as of now, it's still pretty early days to know how soon they are going to, as it were, start reacting to the stimulus. I would say that, basically they are doing what conventionally should be done, trying to, as it were, spare the economy by reducing the cost of credit, hoping that somehow the aggregate demand, both at the level of the consumer, at the level of the businesses, and possibly at the level of government, will be able to, as it were, spare the economy and help growth to go, because they basically are in a state of recession as we speak.